What's good, goddess? I am Chi Aurelia, and I am back with the Transformative Mindset community, just here to drop some gems. And today we're going to be talking about safety. What is it to provide safety to our daughters, especially as single mothers? Because a lot of times safety is associated with protection, and protection is thought of as something only men can provide, but that is not the case. Okay, so I want to start off with a quote from the great Bishop T.D. Jakes, and he says, "The absence of safety is the birth of fear." So you have to ask yourself, if there is an absence of safety, what exactly is that? And y'all know me, I'm good for looking something up in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And so the definition of safety is to be free from harm or risk, to be secure from threat of danger, harm, or loss. So you have to ask yourself, in what ways is it possible for harm, danger, risk, threat of danger, anything like that to come up? And as a mother, what can you do to provide those things, provide an environment where those things are not taking place or are not happening, right? And so it really starts with our mindset. We have to get in the mindset of our children. Understanding and knowing our children is what's going to allow us to understand and know them better. And from there, we'll be able to see, like, well, I know she kind of scared of the dark, so let's talk about it. Let me have her walk to the closet and turn the light off, or close the closet doors at the end of the night, so that we can get rid of the fear of some sort of creature or monster, or the illusion of whatever she's fearing. We can get rid of that by stepping into it and seeing, like, hey, it's nothing here. It's nothing to be worried about, right? Asking why. Why are they scared? Maybe it was from a bad dream. Maybe it was a bad experience. Maybe it was sleeping over at someone else's house that has now created this fear, and we have to figure out how to dissipate it and get rid of it. Fearful of is being home alone. Now, listen, mama got to do what she got to do. Sometimes it's working that extra shift, and you may not get home until they've already been out of school for X amount of time. You may have to go run to the grocery store to get something. You may have a little side job that you're doing, whatever the case may be. Sometimes we are put in a position where we have to leave our kids at home. And that's not to say that you're a bad parent, because mama gotta do what she gotta do. Somebody gotta pay these bills, right? So with that, you just have to take the proper precaution and talk to your daughter through that. This is an iPad or an extra cell phone. You know, I'm not giving this to you to be on YouTube all night, but in case of emergencies, this is how you use it. Setting up a ring light and walking them through the proper steps to make sure that, you know, maybe they can see what is on the other side of that door from the video screen. Being able to pick up the phone and call you and saying, like, hey, I think I heard something, can you check the video? Being able to talk to them about the tools that you're providing them is important. Don't just leave them there with the cell phone. Tell them how to use it, because calling 911 is not always the best case, right? When I was coming up, we were taught how to call 911. Now you call 911 and you might be the one to go to jail. So it's like calling and advocating for the fire department versus anything else. We don't want the police showing up at the door, right? Checking in with your neighbors. This is why it's important to build community, because when you have that neighbor that you can trust, you can then ask them to say, hey, like, I gotta go run and do this for 4 hours. Do you mind checking in? And just, you know, knocking on the door, give her a call, keep an eye out, things of that nature. If you hear anything, give me a call. This is where I'll be. That's very important. Turning on your location is another thing, either so that that child can track you, and vice versa. If you are the type of parent, or your child is of age to where they can go out, you allow them to be out with their friends, making sure that their location is on is very important. So it's not to be all up in your business, like, I don't trust you, but in the event that something happens, at least I know where to start to get an idea of where you may or may not be. Because as we know, it is a lot of craziness going on in this world. It is a lot of crazy folks who don't have the right mindset, who don't have the best intentions for our children. So it's important that we set those intentions, and we talk to them as well, because them hearing us say, I don't want you to do X, Y, and Z, or I don't want you to go here, here, and here, they may think that we are trying to control their life. Oh, mom, you're ruining my life. You don't ever let me do anything. But if we can break it down to them and help them understand, you need to be looking out for vans because this is what they do with big vans. Or you need to be mindful of the strangers that you encounter because, yes, sometimes people are friendly, but when does it become too much of being friendly? When is it prying into your information to see, are you a good target to kidnap? You know, like, it's sad that we have to have these conversations, but as mothers, it is important for us to cultivate an area and a space to where we can have these conversations because it's real life. The last thing we want to be doing is sugarcoating some shit from our kids and having them thinking that everything is sweet and they just out here la 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 la. Next thing you know, we haven't seen them in 3 days and we got missing flyers all over Instagram and social media. We're not doing that because we're talking to them and we're teaching them now that these are the types of things that you just have to have your antennas up for, you know? Keeping it real with them is very important. Like I said, not sugarcoating things. I was driving in a car with my daughter who is 11 and she saw a billboard and she asked me, she said, what is trafficking? And I said, oh, okay. Well, let's turn the radio down and let's get into it because it's real life. It's real life. It's sad that it's real life, but it is the reality of the world that we live in. So being able to answer these questions, and I'm not saying you got to get all like provocative and vulgar and let them know exactly what be happening, but at the same time, you need to let them know exactly what be happening because if they can get it in their mind of this is what's on the other side of not paying attention, walking down the street with my headphones in, not tuning into the world around me, you know, it's a way for them to truly understand and truly grasp the concept of why they need to be aware of their surroundings. Something else that plays a role in being able to protect them and keep them protected is talking to them about their daily how things are going at school. As we know, bullying has become a big thing. It used to be like, you know, everybody played the dozens, everybody was cracking your mama jokes, but now it's to the point where it's like there have been stories of children actually committing suicide because they felt like they were bullied so much at school, they weren't accepted. It's so important to talk to our kids about the interactions that they have with other students and how that affects them. Is this something that's going on with the whole class? Is it just going on with you? Do I need to call the principal? Do I need to have a meeting with somebody and another, you know, another student's parent? Like, really ask them those questions outside of just, hey, how was school? Oh, it was great. Okay. Like, a lot of times it's easy to just be wrapped up into our own stuff and not really divulge into what it is that's going on with them. But it's so important because sometimes those probing questions will really allow us to see what is taking place at school. How is your teacher interacting with you? My daughter told me the other day that a boy brought a damn knife to school. And I'm like, show me in the kitchen cabinet what kind of knife it was. And so it's important to talk to our kids too about snitching versus safety, because a lot of times kids will be too scared to even come forth and say something because they're afraid that, oh, if I snitch, I'm gonna be in trouble, or if I tell this person this thing, then they're not gonna like me anymore. But it was a young lady who he showed the knife to, and the young lady went to go tell the teacher, and the teacher escalated it from there. But it's like, what if that girl was too scared, or what if she thought it was cool and now somebody didn't got stabbed because he playing around and they accidentally dropped, or whatever the case could be. Like, it's just so important for our children to know when it's time to speak up in a situation of your safety is in danger versus just thinking something is cool and you don't want to be the one to get in trouble. I don't give a damn if little Jimmy doesn't like you anymore. At least you are safe. We need to figure out why little Jimmy was going through the kitchen cabinet and nobody knew that the butcher knife was missing. Like, that's the real problem if we want to talk about it. So again, like self-defense classes, if there is a situation of bullying or not even if it's bullying, like, don't wait till it's too late. Self-defense is important just because it gives them an idea of doing something for themselves, being able to have kind of like this superpower under their tool belt of, you know, that boost of confidence of knowing, like, I don't have to come and bully other people. I don't have to be the bully, but if a bully ever came to me, I know how to 1-2 knock them. I know how to stand up for myself, and I'm not afraid to stand up to myself for other people. A lot of times our children don't stand up to other kids because they're afraid that, oh, well, if this person hits me, they're going to beat me up. No, I'm going to stand up to you, and if you say something to me, I'm going to knock your ass out. Now, I don't advocate for violence, but if your child has someone else putting their hands on them, at what point do we stop turning the other cheek and we say, you know what, I'm going to punch you back. You hit me, I'm hitting you back. Like that was the thing. And we was taught somebody hit you, you hit them back, period. It wasn't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, being able to really have that trust with your child as to like, if somebody does something to you, you stand up and defend yourself. I don't care if the teacher calls me. I don't care if the principal calls me. I don't give a damn if the superintendent calls me. I will take care of that as long as you are okay. Because if you allow your child to be the punching bag, then that's going to go into their self-esteem. That's going to go into how they're treated all throughout school, in this grade, in the next grade, transition into, middle school, high school, wherever they may be. So definitely, I'm not advocating for people to just go to school and be fighting, but at the same time, you're not just going to be putting your hands on me or my child. It's not going down like that. Sorry to tell you, but I'm not. Feeling safe at home is major, because while we can protect our children from the outside world, what good does it do to protect them from the outside world if they're not protected at home, And protecting them at home, there's so many different levels to it. There's the small things of keeping chemicals out of reach, showing them how to use something. If you have, if your child is supposed to be responsible for cleaning the bathroom or the kitchen or what have you, showing them the correct way to spray the Clorox away from their face versus now they got bleach in their eye. Like, simple things like that. If you are someone who indulges in Mary Jane or alcohol, keeping those types of things out of reach so that they're not just finding out on their own and, like it wasn't something that you were able to have dialogue of prior to them just dumping into it, especially for the gun owners. Like, listen, I can't wait to tote some iron. I can't wait to take her to the range and teach her how to pack that iron. But it's dialogue that needs to be had about that prior to just jumping into leaving your stuff around. There have been too many cases to where children have been, they found something in the closet, in the cabinet, underneath the bed, and the other sibling got shot, or they shot themselves. Or even I heard a story about a little boy shooting his own mother because the gun was in reach. It wasn't on safety. Too many hazards took place to where that tragic situation happens. So it's definitely important for us to be talking to our children when that time comes. Be open to have that communication. If my daughter came to me right now and was like, listen, everybody keep talking about weed, what is it? Sit down and let me tell you. Now, whether you decide you're gonna let your kids smoke with you or like you're not having that, that's totally your call to make, but at least be open to communicating with them about it, because the last thing you want them to do is be out here in the streets smoking after somebody else. It's been too many times people pass a blunt around. Now you didn't got COVID because you had your mouth on somebody else's stuff, or it's laced and they don't know how to peep those red flags of this is not safe. I would much rather my child come to me and say, listen, this is what I want to try. And then we line it up. Today we gonna smoke out of papers. Tomorrow we might smoke out of a backwood. Let you hit it out of a pipe. Not at 11, but I'm just saying, like, do things at home before they go out into the streets trying to do them because you just shut it down and said no. If the answer is no, tell them why. Give them the understanding of what is going on so that they can say, hey, yeah, I know I can come talk to my mom about this, versus they at Susie's house and her mama is giving them some information that ain't even, you feel me, correct. Is the way that we interact with them. I know it's been this big phenomenon of gentle parenting, and it's really hard to grasp that concept when we grew up getting our ass beat. Okay, my daddy didn't have no problem with the what? What did you say to me? Oh, I told you to do them dishes and they ain't done. Like, it was never an issue for him to move in that manner. And I have to admit, like, that's something that I have been working through and working on. It took a while for me to get away from that. I wasn't just, every day with the whoop wop, but it's like if I told you twice, on that third time, I'm open handed whooping ass. It just is what it is, because at that point, I was not in a mindset of wanting to do better or knowing how to do better, until one day we were having fun, about to get ready to do a dance, and I raised my hand and she flinched at me. And I was like, oh shit, like, my own child is scared of me? Have I whooped your ass that much? Like, yes, we have to instill that fear within our children, but we also have to be mindful of how that plays on them psychologically, because if they don't feel safe with us, how can they feel safe with anyone else? How can they know what true safety really is? So it takes us going to sit within ourselves. I had to really sit with myself, and I had to really do that deep inner work to ask myself, why do I feel like I need to take it that far? How come I can't articulate what needs to be said and done versus just going to this? Because at the end of it all, like, they gonna get over that little bit of pain, but do they really understand why it upset you, or why the answer was no, or why they should have been doing this instead of doing that? So that's a question you have to ask yourself if you're struggling with getting away from the whoopings, whether it's with a belt, a switch, an extension cord, whatever it is. Just ask yourself, why do I have to take it that far, versus being able to articulate what it is. Sometimes it's our mindset, because that's how we were raised. Again, a lot of us came up on whoopings, so it's like that's what we know to do. Sometimes it's us trying to, because at a point I got away from that, and I'm doing the talking, I'm looking eye to eye, I'm having those conversations versus using any type of physical touch. But the other parent is still enforcing that physical altercation style of consequence. So I had to look at it like, okay, if I'm trying to take the gentle parenting route, but the other parent is not so much, is that influencing me to continue to do wrong? And if I see that this is becoming an ongoing issue, how can I talk to the other parent about choosing to do things differently? There were many of conversations that were had in terms of like, yeah, I know it's easy, but like, let's try it this way. Let's do this instead. Let's implement this this system of talking, taking things, like whatever it is you need to do. These kids love their phone. Take the phone. You want to be on YouTube making videos, take the ability to make the videos and edit. You have to hit them where it hurts, not physically, because that shit don't last long. But if you are able to take something from them that they really value, that's what's going to have more of an impact on them. Also, with us being single parents, if you're in a situation where you're able to co-parent and that child is going to be with that other adult for the weekend or the week or whatever have you, providing a safe space for them to have an outlet about their experience. When they come home, sometimes their behavior may be different. They may be upset with having to have been there, or with having to come back and then adjust. If you are making sure that your household operates in a different way than where they may be going, give them the space, undivided attention, to just really pour out their emotions when they come back home. My daughter and I would sit and we would just talk about, like, how was your weekend? What did you do? Where did you guys go? Oh, really? That was said? How did that make you feel? Like, allowing them to really express everything is so important, because they're going through so many emotions with having to be in the back and forth. Having that space to talk about it will relieve them from depression, anxiety, not feeling good enough, the different things that they feel going back and forth. They need to be able to express those things. On top of that, that will allow you to see, how are things being done when they're in the care of this other person? Are there certain things that I may need to address that play into the role of safety? Because if your child is going with this other parent, the other parent is like, yeah, we gonna go to the park, but then the parent is way over here at the basketball court and the child is way over here, that could be a safety issue. Because if that child gets picked up off the parking lot and you don't have eyes on them, then what? Yeah, you could fight somebody to defend your child, but if you don't even know how the child got picked up, where they went, what car they was in, what the license plate is, nothing like that, who are you fighting then? How are you defending anything then? So there are certain conversations that you need to have with the child so that you can see how can you address how can you have those conversations and address that with the other parent while they're in their care. While many of us are able to co-parent, some of us are not. It's just you and that child, you and your daughter, dynamic duo rocking it out. Sometimes as single parents, we feel like we want to date. We feel like we want to get back out there. It's important to take that time to go within and reflect and see how you can better yourself as a person and as a mother. Asking your child, what does it mean to be a good mother? How do you feel about me being a mother? Are there certain things that I could do better or that you feel like you need? I talk about this in one of the earlier videos, and I'll link that below so that you can check that one out as well. But it's important to understand that while we are single parents and we do want to have our own life, what they say in Baby Boy, mama got to have a life too. Okay, I know that's right. It's important to really evaluate who are we dating and the person that we're dealing with and getting to know them in a sense of, is this the right person for me? We don't have to be so quick to bring that person to our house. We have to be very mindful of the fact that this is not just about me. While I may want to get back out there and start dating too, it's a package deal. And so I have to get to know this person well enough before I decide to bring them around my child, because that's going to play a role on her in terms of, kids, they get attached and then they be asking about so-and-so, they be wanting to see so-and-so, they be hopeful that something is going to come to this and maybe you guys could be a family, or maybe they're really jaded and blocked off because of the experience with the other parent and they're like, listen, I don't want anything to do with your new boyfriend, I don't want a dad, it just all depends on them. So you definitely want to not allow your children to dictate your dating life, but it's very important for them to understand that, you may go step out, you may go have a little bit of fun, but don't bring that person around until you know for sure. And you won't really know for sure until you begin to ask those questions, until you see and get to know that person. So don't be in a rush, give it time. Also be very observant of how they interact with their own children. If he got 4 different baby mamas and he don't see none of his kids, what you doing with this man? Harpo, who is this man? Okay, why are we even, because the way that he interacts with his children or the way that he interacts with other kids will give you a very big glimpse into how he may or may not interact with your child. If you're already dating someone and that person has spent a lot of time around your child, ask your child, hey, what do you think about Mr. Jimmy? How does he treat you when I'm not around? Or there anything, what do you think is really cool about him? What is something that maybe is unsettling or kind of bothers you about him? Be courageous enough to ask those questions. You're going to be courageous enough to bring that man around your kids. Be courageous enough to ask those questions to see, how is this person really affecting my child? It is very important for children, not just our daughters, but children in general, to have that type of just mentorship from the male perspective, so it's important that, maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's an older brother, maybe it's someone, if you go to church as a deacon or a pastor, find ways for them to be able to have that type of support, but also understand who that support is coming from, because we don't want to put them around somebody that's going to make them feel unsafe or in danger, or that person has scared them and now they're too scared to come to us with whatever may be going on. So definitely just ask those questions, don't hesitate and don't be shy to do that. Really seeing, can you see this person being your stepdad? What do you feel about a stepdad? What is a stepdad? that all depends on what you see your family dynamic being. Some people don't want to get married, and that's cool. But if this gonna be your boyfriend, then again, is he respecting your child? Is he allowing your child to feel safe? But all of that starts with us as the mothers. We have to make sure that we are providing a foundation and an environment for our children to feel safe, so that way if anything is going on outside of us, outside of our home, they feel the comfortability to come to us and say, listen, I gotta talk to you, mom. And even if your child is the type where they may be like really shy, or they're kind of like, I want to talk to you, but I don't really know. Another form of communication is by getting a journal. You can get a journal and you can write something in that journal and leave it in a common space in the house and let your daughter know, like, hey, we can have this journal, so when certain things come up and you don't really want to talk about it, you can write in there. I'll write back to you, and eventually that will open the door to talking about it in person more in detail, because they know, like, hey, based on how my mom wrote me back, it's cool. I can have this conversation. So I hope that this has been beneficial to someone. I hope that these gems have been helpful. Definitely replay this and pause it at those certain areas where you feel like, I do need to go deeper within myself and ask these questions. I do need to do a little bit of shadow work about the way that I am interacting with my child or disciplining my child. I'm not saying let these kids run wild and run all over you and be disrespectful, but it's a certain way to go about correcting their behavior without becoming violent. And it's important to figure out where along the way that changed, or where along the way you can change that type of activity, because it does not always have to result in somebody getting their ass whooped. So I am Chiarelia, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.